Merry Christmas from Matt, Easton and
Lucy.
It's a Christmas tradition. That's right, Lucy's back. So many years ago, we always used to have a tradition of doing a Christmas video together. And so this is this year's. We're going to keep it as brief as possible, but I wanted to give you something rather than just general life advice and a happy Christmas. And so we're going to look at my 10 favourite swords of 2023. 10! That's right, it was supposed to be 3, and I thought I can't choose 3, and so I thought I'll choose 5, and I couldn't, and I ended up with 10. And even that was a struggle. There are other swords. It turns out I bought a lot more swords this year than I realised.
And 10 of them were brilliant.
Yeah, more than 10 of them were brilliant. In fact, there are even more. There were some very close runners-up, but we're not going to go into them
The top 100 swords of this year.
So before we go on, first of all, Happy Christmas! So this is going out tonight. Depending where you are in the world, you might see this on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. But nevertheless, Happy Christmas to you all. I'm very aware that for many people out there, ourselves included, 2023 has been not the best year in the world. However, this isn't the first time I've said that on a video. I seem to remember 2017.
Do you remember 2020's video?
Yeah, 2020.
That was a strong one.
2018, 2019, and then 2020 got really bad. And we've had a lot of bad years. But, you know, it's got to get better at some point, right? So 2024, we're rooting for you, okay? I would say things can only get better. Sometimes they get worse, but one day they'll get better.
This is a message of Christmas optimism.
This is a message of hope. But anyway, hopefully 2024 will be better. But I can't complain because I did manage to easily pick out 10 fantastic swords that I bought in this year. So we're going to quickly rattle through those. Are you going to go them in descending order of how much you like them? No, that's way too complicated and would require me to prepare for this video, which I absolutely haven't done. I've just turned the camera on and plopped Lucy in front of the camera. So thanks very much to Lucy. Round of applause for joining me here. I'm very much indebted to her. So these are 10 swords that picked at random, some antique, in fact most of them are antique, but there are also some replicas here as well, picked for different reasons. I will explain briefly. Lucy can comment or question as I go through them. So first up is this absolutely fantastic mid-17th century English rapier. And this is the first rapier I've ever owned. So I have, in fact, this year bought... Yeah, the first rapier I've ever... Antique rapier, obviously. The first antique rapier I've ever owned, genuine one. And it's English as well, so therefore less common than Italian or Spanish rapiers. Lucy likes George Silver. That's all you need to know about this, okay? Right, so amazing. This is the first antique rapier I've ever owned, and it's an English one. It's kind of English Civil War period. Amazing thing. I've since bought several other rapiers. So this was the gateway drug that has spelled my doom. But nevertheless, it's a wonderful rapier and I think I'll probably always keep it. I love it. Okay, so that was the first one. The next one is a sort of almost a counterbalance to that, but is also an antique sword, and that is this really nice Muromachi period. I'm going to draw this very carefully because Lucy's next to me. Muromachi period katana, okay? With an absolutely outstanding blade on it, signed maker. I'll probably make a full video about this at some point. Beautiful piece I actually imported from Japan, and it's the nicest antique katana I own. I now own a few. I've increased my Japanese collection quite a bit this year, but this is without question the nicest one I own. And some of the others at some point I'll be moving on probably because I was learning about Japanese swords, which in the antique world I'm relatively new to. But yeah, I absolutely love this. So fantastic buy this year. Now the next one is rather odd and it's very niche. So it is this British officer's sabre, but many of you might be looking at it and going, what on earth pattern is that? Well, do you know what? I'll probably make a full video about this at some point, but this very specifically relates to an article on the Easton Antique Arms website to do with British sword design and fencing in the 1890s. And this is a hybrid design heavily inspired by Italian swords in the 1890s, and actually made in Italy, in Verona. So this is an actually Italian-made and partially Italian-designed British officer sword, but it is very much a British officer sword, and we'll talk more about that in the future. Incredibly rare, probably unique. Okay, and I've got that in auction. So next up is a replica. Now this is an LK Chen. I have got a bunch of LK Chens to review. But this one's really impressed me, and that is the Persian Shamshir. This is the one you will have seen recently where I was talking about the slot in the back of the scabbard that enables these very curved blades to come out. And I just absolutely love... Lucy didn't know about that either. There we go. It turns out a lot of you didn't know about that. So I'm very glad that I made that video.
Know about that?
Yeah, so that's how very curved blades and sometimes very broad blades go into this type of scabbard. If you haven't seen the video yet, which I'm sure most of you probably have.
Maybe I have to watch the video.
There we go. Lucy's actually going to have to watch one of my videos. But this is one of the many swords that LK Chin has expanded into non-Chinese swords in, I'd say in 2023 really, maybe starting in 2022. And so European swords, also Persian swords and other things. And I've got some other LK Chins to review, but this one, I just really love it as a sword. And I've got an antique Persian Shamshir that's actually in stats quite similar to this, but obviously I can't do anything like cutting with that because it's a valuable antique. Whereas this, I can actually go and cut things. So we're going to have lots of fun with this in 2024, doing all sorts of cutting, learning a bit more about very curved blades, how they react on certain targets. I've got lots planned for that. Right, the next one is also a replica, and that is from Coveton. This is the one of their rapier models that came to me for review this year. I know. Yeah, this is the only other rapier actually. There's only two. Well, two. What's wrong with that? Rapiers are fantastic.
But usually they don't make up a tenth of the different types of swords.
But which do you think usually wins out of katana and rapier?
Katana.
What?
Because it can cut through anything.
Right.
Straight through the rapier.
Moving swiftly on. This is just one of the Coveton rapiers that has been sent to me for review this year, and I have got, I won't say heavily, but yeah, a bit heavily into rapier fencing, and I'm just loving it. It's like a whole new HEMA world for me. I'd only kind of slightly dabbled in rapier before, but now I'm actually fencing with rapier week in, week out and really enjoying it. And this one, I won't say it's the only one that handles like a dream, but this one really, really handles like a dream. And I love fencing with this particular swept hilt. Okay, so now moving swiftly on, we're going to have 3 Indian swords. You know I love Indian swords, so does Lucy. So this one's less controversial than the rapier content that I've shown so far, which clearly we found out Lucy's not a big fan of. There we go. I'll get her into rapier at some point. Right, so the first up is...
Oh, we love that one.
Yeah, we remember this was from the unboxing video we did together, and I have since cleaned it up. It's still dark because I retained the original patina, but this, it turns out, and I put a write-up about this on the Easton Antique Arms page, it turns out the gold writing that's on one side of the blade actually names a well-documented and famous person from the late 1700s who was the ruler of Karnataka, a region of India. And so this presumably is either a sword that belonged to him or that he gave to someone as a gift, maybe one of his, bodyguards. I don't know, who knows? We'll never know, but it's an amazing sword, and it's an amazing piece of Indian history that's come into my hands, and it's just massive. It's just a colossally broad, possibly European blade mounted into the Indian basket hilt. Anyway, very cool sword. Next up, and I couldn't not, this was actually one of the first swords I grabbed because I've always wanted one of these.
It's silly.
It's the massive Tegger. That's right, it's the sword that is wider than my arm. It's just humongous, and it's not, the best made sword in the world. It's pretty good quality, but it's just a beast, isn't it, really? So, like the giant Tulwar.
Is it tight?
It's got a little bit of movement in the hilt, unfortunately. But yeah, it's just an amazing, amazing thing. And it's hilarious. It's like, if it didn't exist in real life, you'd think it was a fantasy sword. But oh no, they are a real thing, and there's loads of them surviving. And they are incredible things. And this has got some writing on it as well, which at some point I might try and get translated. Right, next up, the third Indian sword. This is the Suzampata. Nice hilt on this with Koftgari silver and essentially a recurved blade. Just really, really cool weapon with these. They're not really serrations, they're more kind of like filed decoration in the spine and also some serration up here. But just really cool sword. You've seen this in a number of videos if you watch my channel regularly. Very cool thing. I couldn't leave it out of this video. Right. The next two are swords you won't have seen really, or I won't have spoken about much in videos. You might have seen one of them fleetingly, but I haven't spoken about it. So the first one is a Wilkinson British officer's sword. something that generically you've seen lots of on my channel, but you will know, the really attentive viewers will know, that my specialisation are special order or non-regulation officers' fighting swords from the Victorian era, particularly related to British India. And this is so much that, okay, because it has an unusual back piece we'll talk about. Well, I'll do a dedicated video. It has a scroll hilt, very popular in as a non-regulation option, particularly for British Indian serving officers. But and it actually has a regulation 1845 blade, sharpened for service, with the person's initials on, with the serial number. But the important thing about this is the sword of someone who appears in a number of very famous Indian Mutiny photos by the artist, the photographer rather, Felis Bito, and other photographers of the time, from 1857-58 right the way through to the 1860s, because he was one of the colonels of the Bengal Cavalry, Hodson's Horse, and he was a guy called Meacham. And anyway, we'll talk more about him in a future video.
You nearly dove into doing...
Well, I nearly dove in, but we'll do it. It's basically, this sword, it's about who owned it and the importance of the guy that owned it. It is a nice sword. For anyone who knows about the Indian Mutiny, this guy, you will know who Meacham is straight away. He was sort of one of the leading officers of Hodson's Horse, and this is not the sword, not the first sword that he's shown within the mutiny, but it's the sword he bought afterwards and he's later photographed with. Right, okay, so, and that came to me partly by luck and chance and the fact that I buy a lot of swords, and sometimes by the odds these things come to me. Right, the last one is an interesting one. It's actually one of the replicas I'm working on with windlass, and it is this, what some people would describe as a great sword of war. Now, this is the first prototype. There is actually a few changes, particularly to the pommel being made for the second prototype, which will be with me relatively soon. The second batch from the Royal Armoury's official line will be coming out, but this one, I love all of the examples. Obviously, I picked the next batch of 6 swords. They're not all swords, actually, but I picked them, so obviously I like them all. But this one wowed me. I loved the original that in the Royal Armoury's, but you can't sort of overstate what a beast of a sword this is. I'm not saying it's like colossally heavy or anything like that, or even colossally large. It's pretty large, about a 39-inch blade. It's just the breadth of it, the imposingness of it. And this is one of the kind of first generation of longswords from the late 1300s, when longswords started to become popular. So from the time of Fiore, and Lichtenau, in fact. So it's, you know, it's a big wheel pommel, it's not particularly long hilt, but it's just a beefy, great chopping blade with a beautiful flattened hexagonal section. And this just really wowed me. The replica came out so nicely and I'm so pleased with it, and I'm really looking forward to having the final version, but also having this sharpened up like a beast and seeing what it can do in cutting, because I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Right, so to wrap up, 2023, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about 2024. So the things that I've got planned for 2024 for the channel are more experts on the channel. You will have noticed I have recently ramped up the number of guests I have on, and that's something I want to continue. Frankly, I don't want to be the channel of bumbling amateurs. I want to be the channel of experts. So if I'm not an expert on something, I'm going to try and get someone on who is an expert on that thing. Okay, so I'm going to try and get more expertise. I'm going to be trying to get into museums more. In fact, we've got some museum filming. I've got lots of collaborations, lots more collaborations planned. I've got some stuff with Todd planned coming up and this kind of stuff. We've got some more weapon tests, some more exotic and unusual and forgotten, neglected weapons. And all sorts of exciting stuff like that, as well as more cutting tests of a different type. I won't go into that yet, but yeah, there's lots of fun stuff planned for the channel coming up in 2024. Some of it being planned right now and will actually be relatively soon as well. So to wrap up 2023, thank you for all of the support, the amazing and heartfelt support actually that I've received this year from all sorts of people for all sorts of different reasons. It's massively appreciated. A massive shout out to the patrons over on Patreon, who as always are steadfast supporters and encouragers of my work, and also giving me great ideas for new videos and new types of things I can be doing. And yeah, lots of new stuff coming in 2024, and hopefully it's going to be a better year than 2023 was. And quite excited actually about jumping into some of the new things, new ventures that I've got planned. So best wishes to you, your families, your loved ones from Lucy
Merry Christmas.
and myself. May you live peacefully and happily. May you have a restful Christmas, and may 2024 be better in every way possible than 2023 has been. Thanks a lot for all your support. I hope you'll be here in 2024, because I certainly will be. Because do you know what, this year I have been Matt Easton, and in 2024 I intend to continue being. And I think Lucy does as well. Lucy doesn't know what I'm talking about. She doesn't know. She doesn't know that's how I
started doing that, but I don't know why.
Anyway, right, we're going to enjoy the rest of our evening now, and have maybe a glass of port. We didn't actually drink on camera this time. We have done in times past.
More for the live stream.
Let's crack open a bottle now. And if you're that way inclined, I hope you do the same. Anyway, take care, folks. See you on the other side. In fact, you will get a video on Boxing Day, so 26th, I think. But nevertheless, see you, take care, and yeah, see you soon.